What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Review for Higurashi When They Cry Go. This is episode 7, sorry.
Yeah.
With me as always, I have Blue Spit.
So we pick up after the last episode where Shion and Keiichi go into the shed, and they, of course, what they find in there is, well, they find a lot of tools and different, and including one that's even like a bear trap or something like that. And then, of course, back at the middle of the room is, of course, the Oyashiro statue.
Yeah. There's various different tools, and then, of course, the Oyashiro statue. This is kind of where we get a bit of, a history lesson on Hinamizawa, and how it used to be known as Onigafuchi, which is like the village of the demons or something like that. I think they said during the Meiji period, supposedly the demons rose up out of the swamp of Hinamizawa and tried to attack the villagers, and then Oyashiro came down and the demons stopped attacking the villagers, and they made some kind of a pact with the demons where basically someone would be sacrificed to the demons in order for peace to be kept between, I guess, the demons and the villagers.
Yeah, and of course this, I think what was it, Takano is telling the story, and of course Keiichi, Keiichi just immediately accepts the story as a lot easily than he did with than in previous arcs.
Yeah, I found this kind of weird, but I mean it could have been the same, because like I said, it's been a while since I've seen the original anime, and I actually just finished reading the first arc of the visual novel, so he could be different in this arc. But it's funny because in Onikakushi in the first arc, Keiichi is much more reluctant to believe in the curse of Oyashiro, and in this it's kind of weird how all of a sudden he just kind of accepts it. And he's willing to believe it. So I just kind of find that sort of weird. It is a little bit out of character from what we know of him.
I mean, I could point out to maybe he remembers certain things from previous arcs, that we don't know about. But it's just like, it's weird for him to just suddenly just accept it out, just right off the bat like that.
Yeah.
Because normally, he just immediately, he's initially reluctant, about the story, then slowly he gets suspicious of the other people that he hangs out with, and then he just slowly starts to get delirious, and then and paranoid with everything that's going on, and he starts isolating himself. But now this one, he just immediately just believes it right off the bat.
Yeah, so that's pretty, and of course we also get kind of like a further explanation of the meaning behind Watanagashi. And apparently in the past, the Watanagashi festival meant taking entrails and drifting them down the river instead of the cotton they use. So apparently supposedly that's what happened. That's pretty much it. And of course, at one point, Shion goes up to the Oyashiro statue and knocks it over, and the head falls off and splits apart. And this is when Tomitake comes in and sees that the head had been split apart and tries to put it back together. And apparently we discovered it was already broken, supposedly. And then he puts the head back on, and then that's pretty much the extent of what happens in the shed. And then they leave. I really don't know, I don't really know what exactly the relationship between Tomitake and Mio Takano is, because it seems like because the two of them are about to, I guess, go off together to supposedly, I guess, watch the cotton drifting part of the festival, and Mio Takano just gets really up close to him and basically gives the signal that she just wants the two of them to go back together alone. So the two of them leave, go off on their own, and then that just leaves Keiichi and Shion. but yeah, like I said, I don't know what they're like. I don't know if they ever like. They probably make this clear in the answer arcs, but I don't really remember like what the relationship between Tomitake and Mio Takano really is. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like they were implying like a romantic relationship
like that, yeah.
or something like that, which just came out of nowhere. And then, of course, Shion tells Keiichi to not tell anyone of what they were doing in the shed in the first place.
Yeah.
And then I think Keiichi meets up with Mion and the others, and then of course like he pretty much like keeps like the whole information to himself, but Mion herself is suspicious of what Keiichi was doing.
I think Rika might have been suspicious as well if you like look at her facial expressions, the way she reacts to him, like describing her dance.
I think it, or maybe like Rika knows.
She probably
knows about this. Yeah, she probably knows about this like all along. It's just like she's not displaying that as much until we find out at the end of the episode. But then, but of course, like Keiichi decides to go back home for the night, and then he meets up with Oishi once again, and then of course Oishi tells Keiichi about Shion and Mion's family, or actually their father, who is of course the head of a Yakuza family that takes control of the town. And then
Oishi is even more Oishi is even more suspicious in this in this part of the story.
He always like approaches Keiichi for whatever reason, not anybody else.
Well, it's like I said in the first arc. I think I think they actually explained this as well in the visual novel. He approaches Keiichi because Keiichi is new to the town, and he's an outsider, and he's not familiar with all their customs and everything, and he feels like he can, I guess, trust Keiichi more than anybody else in the village. So
yeah, it's but it just seems weird that he would constantly just walk up to him and tell him all this stuff. But anyway, this of course doesn't comfort Keiichi even further, and then of course he gets a phone call from Shion.
One other thing too is that Oishi also gives away that he knew what Keiichi did. Keiichi and the others did, and they went into the shrine.
Yeah, it's just weird. Well, yeah, it's just like it's weird that he brings that up, but he never. I don't know. It's just like, and then of course I think he also bring up that Tomitake and Takano also went missing at the time.
I don't know. I think he might have. I forgot. Like and then of course that gets confirmed by Shion later when Shion calls Keiichi.
But it's also weird because she describes that Tomitake and Takano, she tells Keiichi that they were fearing for their life because of the curse, and then Tomitake and Takano apparently steal a truck that was supposed to be taking like festival equipment, and they just drive off somewhere, and then nobody hears from them again.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not remember this happening in the original anime, so this could be a change. I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, yeah, I don't remember this either. It's one of the weird changes that they put in with this new adaptation, of course. Yeah. But of course, like this whole story like freaks Keiichi even further, to the point where he just yelling at the phone, and then Shion just hangs up on him.
Yeah, and of course he jumps to the conclusion that this must be Oyashiro's curse, and Oyashiro is taking it out on them for sneaking into the shed and defiling the statue or whatever.
Yeah, and then of course like Keiichi just doesn't get any sleep from this, and you can just clearly see in his face the next day with his baggy eyes and stuff. But they made up with Mion, and she said that she hasn't gotten any sleep either, but she doesn't look as bad as Keiichi does. But of course what happens next is they get to the school, and then they find out that the mayor of the town has went missing.
I mean, that was kind of weird. I don't know why the mayor's missing now.
And yeah, I don't remember if this ever happened,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just, and then soon after the next scene, I remember this scene like back in the original Dean version, in which
Mhm.
Keiichi has this conversation with Rika in this scene, and he goes into like the whole he goes into a metaphorical conversation with her about the story called The Little Kitty Cat That Did Something Bad. And he's about to get into that story, but then all of a sudden, just Rika just suddenly just flips the switch, and then her eyes turn red.
Yeah.
And this initially, like, for me, like I thought this was what was it? That was fuck, I forgot it. It's Hanyu. Yeah, I thought it was Hanyu at first, and
This I can tell you for pretty much. I can say for almost certain this is not Hanyu, because Hanyu, like, her personality is not like this. At very rare times when she's trying to be protective of something, she can basically flip a switch to and become sort of a kind of a different person, but she's not evil, so or malicious in any way, so I don't think it's Hanyu. But yeah, we saw this in the first episode, like at the very end of the first episode, when Rika's eyes did this thing, and at first I actually did think she was being possessed by Hanyu, because of course, as we know from Higurashi Kai, Rika and Hanyu are, she's able to communicate with Hanyu. But we actually hear her talk, when her eyes become like this in this part, near the end of the episode, and what she's saying, like, in the way she's talking, the only other character that comes to mind that, like, okay, so I should also mention something else. Like, Rika's personality is a bit like kind of a facade. Like, she doesn't really, like, the way she acts around her friends is not how she really is. She's basically like trying to keep up appearances, essentially, because of course she's the only one who knows about how everything is going in like an endless loop, and her real personality isn't like this. And like the way she's talking here is similar to how her tone of voice would be, but things that she's saying and the way she's acting seems very malicious, which is very much unlike Rika. It's more similar to the character of Berncastel, who is a character from Umaneku, who is a witch and who is an alternate, like, universe, like, version of Rika or something, or like basically Rika if she never made it out of the endless loops, and she gave into, I guess, if she gave into despair and became like and becomes like a witch, Berncastel is basically technically sort of an evil character. Like, she's a bad guy in Umaneku, sort of. So this is more like something she would say, like the things that she says and just the way she says it. I have a theory that it's possible it could be Berncastel. And this could, and I mean, also we already know that there are, that there supposedly are going to be some connections to Umaneku, so maybe this could be one of them, but I could be wrong, so I don't know. Anybody who maybe has read more of the Higurashi novel than I have, or knows more about the visual novels and all that, maybe can correct me, but from what I know of Umaneku, like, this is much more similar to something Berncastel would say. The other possibility, I suppose, could be Featherine, which is the another witch from Umaneku, but I don't think so, because Featherine is a neutral party. She's not really evil. She's just she's basically more of an observer. She's not really, like, actively taking part in things. She's not really a malicious character per se. Berncastel has much more of a malicious nature, so I feel like it's much more likely it could be Berncastel. Although I have no idea why she would show up here, so I don't know.
Yeah, unless if it's just it might be like a sign that she might be steering Keiichi in a much different direction that at this point in the story. Maybe it's possible, but I'm not really sure. But yeah. It's kind of a departure from the original scene, in which, like, they have, where Keiichi and Rika have their more normal conversation, talking about the whole kitty cat metaphor sort of thing, and but then just all of a sudden we just switch over to, like, Rika swapping her personality out of nowhere. So I think it's possible that they are going that this particular arc might end differently, but to me, I just still think it's still going to end badly, and then we're going to end up repeating the same timeline possibly by the end of the next episode.
It would be interesting if the twist, like one of the twists in this series, is that Burn-Castell is actually like interfering with the events of Higurashi and is like taking over Rika's body and like maybe having her do things or something, like things that Rika wouldn't do. And like I think that would be interesting if that were the case, but maybe that could be like one of the major changes that happens in this new series, because from what I know from Umaneku, Burn-Castell can do that, where she like can interfere with because the witches exist in something both. I think this appears both in Higurashi and Umaneku, known as the meta world. The meta world is basically like the world outside the real world, where the witches can come and go as they please and interfere with the events of what's happening in the world, sort of. So Burn-Castell can do that, but although like I said, I don't know why she would do this, and also considering the fact that Umaneku technically is supposed to take place like 3 years after Higurashi, I mean, I guess we'd have to also take into account the possibility of time travel, so I don't know.
Well, okay, well, from what she sounded, voice wise, I mean, she sounded a lot older than than her younger self.
Well, Rika technically is very old, like she's hundreds of years old because she's been.
So, okay, so like maybe she swapped. Well, it's possible that this might be her older self.
Burn-Castell, I think, is 400 something years old. So.
Yeah. But like you said, Umaneku doesn't happen like until 3 years after the events of
and also I guess we could also take into account that the meta world functions very differently, and time probably passes very differently in the meta world than it does in the actual world of Higurashi and Umaneku.
Yeah, but so far I think this was like one of the bigger surprises in this episode.
I feel like the fan theories are gonna go crazy with what might be happening with Rika. I really like. That's why I want to see like some more scenes, maybe with like Rika and Hanyu, but maybe they're like purposely just because, like in the beginning of the show, I thought that we were going to be switching perspectives from like Rika to Keiichi, but that's not really the case. It's mostly just Keiichi's perspective. So I guess there are still a lot of elements that were, like. There is still that mystery aspect, especially with whatever's going on with Rika. We don't really get that.
Speaking of Rika, I mean, like if you remember, like in the openings, like one of the more notable scenes in the openings is like Rika running through, like running uphill in a field or in a forest or something like that, running towards something, maybe toward the Oyashiro temple. Or something like that.
That's also more of a reference to Higurashi Kai's opening, I think, where she's and that this also occurs in the openings in the visual novel too, where you see Rika running, and I think this is mostly just supposed to symbolize Rika's constant struggle to like try to get out of the loop she's stuck in, I guess.
Yeah, but for right now, well, but pretty much that's all. That's the entire episode.
Yeah.
Like the episode just ends right there.
Well, it actually, after this conversation too, like it kind of ends with like Sadako coming up to Keiichi and asking to if he wants to play this dodgeball game, and then Rika is like, you should do it. I don't know if that's important, but yeah, like that's kind of where it ends with. So, I really don't know what to expect in the next episode, because like this does seem to be going like, I mean, we really haven't gotten into it yet because the Watanagashi festival just happened, so I guess this is where we're going to see where this arc is going to go in terms of its plot, because there really hasn't been any mention of Satoshi so far, so maybe we might get that later, but we haven't gotten it so far, nor have we really gotten it in the I don't think we've even gotten in the first arc either. So that's kind of interesting, but
no, I am pretty much expecting the plot line with Neon and Shion to get into a head by the end of next week's episode.
Yeah.
Because that's where I believe that's gonna end up happening. Because because it looks like they are heading into a whole love triangle,
And I mean,
whatever you call it.
It is clear to me that Shion probably has some kind of ulterior motive. We just don't know what that is. Now I also have plenty of questions about whatever it is that's going on with Rika, though. Like that's my like main takeaway from this episode is like I really want to know what that is, but I think they're going to leave us hanging for a while, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like the whole Rika subplot is going to be...
That's probably going to be like the main plot, really, like of the whole series.
I mean, it's gonna be on the back burner, like a little bit at a time, but you get to slowly notice it building up as the show goes on. Yeah. So I do feel like that, so far the story is gonna play out similarly to how the original series has done, but with the exception with the new Rika story building up in the background.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I also wonder if this arc is going to go in a very different direction as well, just because of the whole like love triangle thing it seems to be building up.
Yeah, that's definitely where I believe that's where that's going to be headed. Yeah. And obviously it's not going to end well by any means from like what we've seen like in all the other adaptations so far. Yeah. But so we'll have to see what's going to happen. But that's going to be until like next week.
Yeah, we already did get some hints from Oishi, and I think that this is how the arc in the original series went as well. But I think they're going to kind of be showing some more of the Sonozaki family because Oishi brought that up himself, and of course this does focus on both Neon and Shion. So I think we're probably going to see more of that in the next episode too. So yeah. They don't really have anything else to say about this episode, though. I think that like I said, I think the biggest, like, kind of, oh shit moment for me was when, Rika started, just, like, flipped the switch and started talking like she was someone else. And, like I said, I think, I have a pretty good idea of who she could be, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's a new character. So, guess we'll have to see what happens with that. But, yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this one. I don't know if you have anything else to say.
No, I mean we'll have. It was. I thought this was a good build-up episode for whatever's going to happen in the next episode. Yeah. So yeah, we'll have to see what's going to happen. But I do have like a slight feeling of what's going to happen next week, and then what's going to happen in the next arc, which it was just going to focus more on Sadako.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't get any mention of Satoshi in this arc, then we definitely will with the next one, since it focuses on Sadako. But yeah, that being said, until next time, we will see you all later.